Uh-oh. Welcome back to the channel. It appears we have a problem. There has definitely been a response from last episode's tree chopping, and the size of these branches are making me slightly concerned at what's to come. So I think we'll do our best to avoid repeats. If we don't have to cut down trees, we won't. But before I was interrupted, I was setting recipes for advanced SMD components. I think today we're going to figure out how we can finally start to make some HSS and E, niobium titanium, things like that. Because I reckon we're actually pretty close to making some crystal circuits. I know we need the LUV machine hulls, the fusion computers, which comes from the assembly line. There's a fair way to go. But the assembly line is our key to all late game components, including the LUV energy hatch, which we will use to upgrade our assembler and our circuit assembler. So I think what we'll do today is we'll start working on the assembly line, circuits, and more. And if that all sounds good to you, you know what to do. Hit the like button and subscribe for future videos. With that all being said, let's begin. So let's continue with our advanced SMD components. The first and easiest one to add is going to be the polybenzimidazole ingots. That's just going to be an ingot mold, an item output, interface, pump, import, filter, partition. The next thing we're going to need is a way of cooling down HSS, which is going to require liquid helium, which just requires a freezer and some other parts we probably have in here. And a little bit of building and a little bit of tape. So it takes 6 seconds to freeze 1 bucket. Not good enough. 3 is better. And then we can mod our other vacuum freezer setup with 2 hatches, an input and an output, 2 interfaces, and liquid helium in the input. Because every time you use liquid helium to cool something down, you get helium gas as a byproduct, and we actually want to keep our helium gas. And with all the recipes being set, we should be able to request all of them. So let's request some SMD transistors. Advanced SMD transistors, because I said the wrong thing the first time. It was actually a resistor. An advanced SMD inductor. An advanced SMD diode. And finally, the advanced SMD capacitors. Beautiful, we've actually managed to get them all correct. And 2 of them already made. Well, that was actually quite an easy start to the episode, wasn't it? And now my favorite thing to do is to unfavorite the working projects. Beautiful. Nice clean screen. And moving right along from the SMD components is going to be the 3 ingots that we can craft so far to get ourselves set up into the LUV age. Technically there's 4 as well for the niobium titanium wires, but we actually already make niobium titanium. Or at least we have the capacity to. So first one is going to be twinite. This is our superconductor. This is just enderium, amethyst, and lumium. And we do need to be able to make amethyst, which is macerating these amethyst shards that we have hundreds of thousands of. And then setting our blast furnace recipe. Next one is rhodium plated palladium. Not too bad, it's only rhodium and palladium. Then we can set our blast furnace recipes. Let's also set the bending recipes for these rhodium plates. Just while we're here, we may as well. And all the possible twinite wire combinations. So 1x, 2x, 4x, and 16x. We're also going to set up LUV 16 amp converters, which also needs the machine hull, which is PTFE, niobium titanium cables, and that. Niobium titanium cables, we actually have our polyphenylene sulfide now, so we can craft all of this. We actually need to be able to wire mill the niobium titanium wires and craft the machine casings. And final one on the chopping block is ruridit. Ruridit is a little bit harder to make. It's ruthenium and iridium, and it's hard because iridium is rare. So we'll set the mixer, blast furnace, and then we'll also set long rods, which are for LUV emitters, fine ruridit wire for the LUV components, gears for the assembly line, and plates, because I am sure they're useful somewhere. Oh yes, incensors. And neutron reflectors. So that's an inventory full of recipes. How about we go set those up? Oh, we're actually out of space in our blast furnaces. That's not an issue, we can just place another pattern provider. We can take out an item pipe, set to extract, give it a pipe upgrade, and set to round robin. This one is set to the exact same. So amethyst dust into the macerator, Twinite dust can go anywhere, so let's put it in the least populated pattern provider, which will be circuit 2, I believe. Ruridit is circuit 1, and so is rhodium-plated palladium. So all are circuit 1 in the mixer. In the wire mill, we can place our 1x wires, our 2x wire, fine wire, and our 4x. Can place our cables to be coded in one of our pattern providers, our machine hulls in another, regular plates on the circuit 1 hatch, double plates on the circuit 2 hatch, gears with the others, long rods, and finally our converters and wires. Could be useful to plug in the pattern provider. So, twinite ingots, the rhodium-plated palladium, and ruridit. Let's see how long these take to craft. Probably a while, knowing my luck. A little bit of time later, and we have most of the ingredients now. So let's get our quests, and have a look at what's next. So let's triple barrel this quest page here. Let's make the assembly line, the LUV machine hull, and some wires. So let's just put onto the craft 500 twinite wires. We are going to need a fair amount of these because these can travel our LUV power. So that's going to take a little bit of time, but I'm happy to wait. Let's get some LUV machine hulls. We'll just go for 8 for now, see how that goes. And now, the big block. The multi-block assembly line. This is going to take a lot of our resources, so we are going to need solid machine casings, and of course you can't favorite the items in this view, that's great. So we're going to need assembly line grating, casing, control casing, laminated glass, and solid machine casings. So let's get solid machine casings and laminated glass, and let's figure out how much we're going to need. So P, I'm not sure what the P stands for, but I just assume it is like level. I think this goes up to, 12. So 12 blocks long is going to be our first assembly line. Pardon me, it's actually 17 blocks long. So we're going to need 17 control casings, 34 laminated glass, 17 assembly line casings, 32 grating, and 50 machine casings. We're also going to need 16 ULV input buses. These need to be ULV, they cannot be anything else. We need 1 output bus. We need our energy hatches, which there's no way we're going to use ULV. We're actually going to use 2 IV for now. And then we need a data access hatch. So let's set the recipes for the things we don't have. Right, so that's pretty annoying, but either way, here's what we got done. So we've managed to go through more of the quest line. We've gotten our ingots, which I think I've covered before, but we got our machine hull, our assembly line. We haven't made the 64 amps, but we have made the 16 amp versions, and we have made the 16 amp version of this. We've also got all of the materials for the assembly line, but we don't really have anywhere we want to build it. Oh look, pillagers. There's no good spot on the map for this to be built, so what we're going to do is we're going to continue this pathway out and have assembly lines flanking either side. I suppose we are going to need more than just 1. I used 2 last time, so maybe we'll use even more. So, let's get building. then a little bit of trial and error later, we actually have our assembly line all built and plugged into power. But it is not plugged in underneath yet because we need to set some recipes first. The first thing that we want to be able to make is an LUV motor. This is where assembly line crafting starts to get a little difficult. I'm not sure if it's set up like this, but I am pretty sure it's set up like this. So what we need to do is we need to request everything in the terminal. And we need to be able to make the samarium rods, HSS rods, rings, and rounds. We do have lubricant, we can make soldering alloy, that's fine. We need a high voltage polarizer, we have one of those. We have an extruder. We need to be able to cook samarium, which is fine. We need long HSS rods. We need rings, which are just an ingot in our extruder. And rounds, which are just a nuisance. So let's lathe a nugget. And then let's just craft an ingot into nuggets. It's actually that simple. So nugget, samarium blast furnace, HSS round, high voltage polarizer, long rods, and ring. And now that we have all of those automated, let's just unfavorite them quickly and have a little chat about the assembly line. So the assembly line doesn't work like other blocks because it requires sequenced crafting, which means that if we were to make this ultra high voltage piston, we would need a motor, plate, ring, round, etc. And it would need to be motor in the first slot, plate in the second, and so on. So what we're going to do is we're going to use the Gregtech pipe priority system, applied energistics, and some P2P tunnels to automate this in a pretty convenient way. So first off, we want to have these item pipes connected to every single bus, except the output bus. And make sure they're all connected together, and make sure that we only send items in one direction. Now we set up our fluid pipes in the same way. Yes, that should work. It doesn't have the indicator, but that's okay. Then what we can do is we can place a pattern provider, make sure that we connect the pipe up to it, and then this is where the trick comes in. So what we need to do is we need to place a P2P tunnel, then we need to place two more. So one on the pattern provider, then we need to place one on the item pipe, and one on the first input bus. Okay, magical. I have fixed it, and I will show you how it's done. It is actually very simple, and this should save you a lot of time. So the real solution is going to be applied energistics storage buses and a technical subnet. So to start with, we have a pattern provider with our pattern that we want to provide. We'll send that into an interface, and this interface is on a different network to the network of the pattern provider and is connected to the blue net here. And the blue net has storage buses, and each storage bus will have report inaccessible items, and its priority will be numbered. So since there are 16 input buses, I went with the first input bus being priority 16. Because for insertion, a higher priority will be first. You also need to make sure that your extended pattern provider or pattern provider is on blocking mode. I have one input hatch because I just find the non-nipple input hatches just easier to use. Storage bus on it, priority doesn't matter, but report inaccessible. Down the end, I have an interface on the white network here. The reason why they're different colors is because different colored cables do not connect. And that's it. It is actually that simple. No need for P2P or anything like I thought. It's just storage buses. And so I requested 15 motors, and there should, 14. Ah, there we go. So one more motor to be crafted. But otherwise we've got it working. So let's set the patterns for all the other LUV components. So we know the assembly line works and we know it's all going well. Let's make the LUV energy hatch because I know we need it to smelt up the superconductors required for the fusion reactor. So everything is going well with our assembly line now. Let's look to the future to making the fusion reactor and the LUV energy hatch. I think we'll start with the energy hatch first. And looking at the recipe for the energy hatch, there's two things we can't make. And that is all the components for the voltage coil, which is osmiridium wire. So I guess it's only one thing we can't make. And the reason is because actually like crafting osmiridium Actually crafting the dust for osmiridium requires an LUV mixer, which we don't have, and the voltage coil requires an LUV assembler, which also we don't have. We do have our large assembling factory, but as you can see, we can only run IV recipes, even though we can supply 16 amps of IV power. And it's also the same with the circuit assembler. So I've been doing a little bit of cleaning up at our old auto crafting walls, and I think let's start to put in an LUV line up here. And the first one is going to be an LUV mixer, and we just need to be able to make the rhodium plated palladium rotors, which is great. So then I guess we'll try making the assembler, which will be the LUV assembler, which is here, and we can make everything. So let's just request it all. Not too bad. We'll also set a recipe for the rhodium plated palladium rotor. Put it with the others. And I think I've left some patterns around because we're still requesting nano processors, which are a circuit tier below what we can craft. Luckily, the LUV robot arm is using the correct tier of circuits, but for some reason, auto requesting requests the lowest tier of circuit. And there they are. Let's actually just remove the patterns so we no longer request those circuits. And so that means we now should be able to request the LUV mixer with a little bit more haste. And I think the only thing that it needed to make was the rhodium plated motor. Okay, so let's get the mixer to start with. It's going to use our nano processors. So we're also going to need a converter. So let's make a 16 amp converter here. Which is going to take another LUV circuit craft. Right, and I suppose we'll just start by placing the mixer down, giving it its pattern provider, and allowing items and fluids from the output side to be inputted. And now we just get to wait. And a little bit of waiting and patience sees us getting our LUV assembler and LUV mixer. And this is a long shot, but I do want to have a stack of LUV energy hatches. And what are we missing? Okay. So that's actually possible. The funniest thing that we're missing is I haven't replaced my recipe for copper ingots. Let's find the recipes in the terminal that was recommended to me by this friendly user. Here we are. And we can change this to... Oh, this is a lot of recipes for the dust. How about we just do this? Done. So we should be able to request 64 LUV energy hatches. What's going to be the biggest time sink here? Probably the smelting, I reckon. Doesn't even seem that bad. I must be blind somewhere, but I'm pretty sure there should be like 1,000 rhodium plated palladium in this. No, there we are, 512. I've seen worse. Let's go. And this time the waiting was fruitful. We have 64 LUV energy hatches. Can't help but have a little giggle at that. Okay, so let's make a few LUV 16 amp converters. We'll just make 20, and it's another smelting recipe. Where is it? It's here. Tin ingots. Require some tin dust instead this time. And we can put it back in. And now let's request 20 LUV converters. There we go. That's going to work. I don't think there's much in here that's really super expensive except a lot of twinite wires. But that's okay. We can live with it. Let's go. And the reason we're requesting these is because I'm going to shift most things over to LUV power. But that raises a problem. Is our battery big enough to support LUV power? And is our solar array actually big enough? Well, you know the answer to that question. It's never, yeah, it's enough. It's always, no, not enough. So continuing on with the trend of using solar energy, let's have a look at what we can do battery-wise. So we can make the ultimate battery. That's just an IV machine hull. How about we make the dense battery, though? That's an LUV machine hull and the dense cell. Yes, we're stopped at the regular because we don't have an Aquata alloy. Okay, so right now we can make the basic dense battery, which if we replace this battery in its entirety, so that's 50 billion storage, we'll get to 50 trillion FE storage. And solar energy seems to be pretty similar as well. It's exactly the same recipe, but with the LUV materials, an LUV circuit. These are all actually really achievable and will generate 100,000. So if we replaced all of these, we'd increase our energy generation from 4 million to 40 million, which is 10 million EU per tick, or 5 ultra high voltage amps, which might sound like a lot, but seeing all of the talk in the Discord makes me think that it isn't a lot. And while I've been yapping, we've actually got our first converter. That's fantastic. Let's start to set some recipes for our new power. So I have already encoded the recipes for the dense energy core modules. So let's, okay, so it is just the basic dense. So we're going to be crafting the basic dense, which is going to require a LUV machine hull and this dense battery. This is circuit 1 in an LUV circuit assembler. So we have to make sure that if we're going to be crafting these, we set the circuits to circuit 1. It's 2 LUV circuits, almost missed that. Everything else is fine. So that's batteries done. Let's have a look at the ultimate solar generator. So again, this is just a regular assembler. That's all come through correct. And then the ultimate solar cell is going to take another LUV circuit assembler on circuit 0. Make sure we set this to 2. Alright, done. So we have to request these in batches. We don't want to end up making something silly like we did last time. So the waiting continues here, but I'm done waiting. Let's start requesting some batteries and some solar panels. And I think that that'll be the last thing we do this episode. So let's just make sure this IV wire no longer touches anything that's about to be LUV. I think that's just turned off the vacuum freezer, so let's just re-plug that in. Done. So that vacuum freezer is still on. Let's turn this IV hatch into an LUV energy hatch. And put an LUV converter. Hit it with a soft mallet to make it convert FE into EU. Make it face the right way. And now our assembly machine runs at LUV. And let's do the same for our circuit assembler. So we place an LUV energy hatch, an LUV converter, bonk it with the hammer, rotate it to face the right way, and then we can place down our flux point. So now that's also running at LUV. Right, so I think what we'll do first is we're going to request the solar cells. So we need to make sure that we set this input bus to circuit 0. So let's find the input bus and set it to circuit 0. And now we can request 100. Man, okay, alright. I think we really need to start to look at replacing sodium persulfate, because needing 1500 buckets for a craft is just getting ridiculous. So let's just explore our other options. We can use cupric chloride solution and iron 3 chloride, but because we need less cupric chloride solution, let's just see how difficult that is to make. So it's hydrochloric acid and copper chloride, which is copper and chlorine. That is so unbelievably easy. Okay, so let's replace our... Actually, is that the same setup? So it's a mixer and a chemical reactor. So let's just replace these two machines. Let's just change the recipes and replace the electrolyzer. Okay, and here we are, an EV mixer. Alright, so no more electrolyzer. We'll get our advanced mixer. So it's copper and chlorine to start with. So we'll request copper and chlorine. Oh, this is going to take ages to make. 15 seconds at EV to make 2 copper chloride, and then 20 seconds to make a bucket. Oh, well, I think what we'll do is we'll just let this buffer. That's fine. Okay, so we'll put a pump on the side of this mixer, set it to import, interface with, I believe it's hydrochloric acid. Yes, it is. And then we'll just set it to export down the bottom. All right, we're going to reset. We had a super tank for sodium potassium because I thought we were going to need it passive, but because it makes so fast, we don't actually need to passive it. So let's set this storage bus to cupric chloride, unlock from sodium potassium, and then it should automatically store into this super tank. No need to place a new one. And there we are, tanked up. So I'm not at all going to bother with putting any sort of limiting on these, because I actually want as much of it as we can get, because, you know, you can see how much we're using, and when it comes down to making even more advanced circuits, we need buckets of the stuff, so no point buffering. So I've changed my mind. Let's go into our circuit assembler, select circuit 1 for battery cells, and request 50 batteries. Good. And I think that's going to do it for today's episode. We have officially finished the IV quest page. It doesn't look like it because we're missing all of the multi-blocks, but they're not essential. So we are finally into the LUV age. There's 3 big processes to do, I guess maybe 4. So we are finally into the LUV age. There's some good challenges ahead of us, and the assembly line is going to help us achieve all of them. Hopefully the next time I see you guys, there won't be a massive expansion of giant branches all over the base. That would be pretty disastrous if I say so myself. And it looks like we are pushing our systems to the limit. But next time you see it, it'll be fixed with the new solar panels and the new batteries. And if you like my stuff, then make sure you like and subscribe to the channel. to see more videos. I've got a few great things in the works, but they'll take some time. So for now, we're going to continue working on star technology. And working it, we shall. And if you're down for that, then I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.